Hi there. Today I'm going to be making some bacon. I'm making the bacon out of a Boston butt, a pork shoulder roast. The reason I'm using that is because around here it's just about impossible to find a pork belly. So this is readily available and it makes really good bacon, so that's what I'm using. And I use a tender quick method that uses tender quick, brown sugar, a little sprinkling of black pepper, and maple sugar. And the formula for making it is for each pound of meat you use 1 tablespoon of tender quick and then 1 teaspoon of maple sugar and brown sugar, and then again it's just a sprinkling of the black pepper on it, as much or as little as you like. So the first thing I'll do is get that mixed up. This is just a fraction of a pound over 3 pounds. So probably by the time I cut some of this fat off in that, it'll be almost right on 3 pounds. So I'm going to mix up enough for 3 pounds, which means I need 3 tablespoons of the tender quick. My bag is getting down there. I've been using this for a while. There's 1. There's 2. And if you're going to err, you probably want to err on the side of too much rather than too little, because you can sort of rinse off the excess, but if you don't have enough, you won't get the proper cure. And then for the rest of the stuff, the maple sugar, this is marvelous stuff. It really has a nice flavor. You could use, instead of maple sugar, you could use maple syrup, but I find this to be just as tasty and a heck of a lot less messy. So I'm going to put in 3 teaspoons and then 3 teaspoons of the brown sugar. And we want to pack that, so I'll do that with my finger. Now we'll mix that all up and get ready for the next step. In the next step, now you could just coat this with it as is and it would turn out to be just fine as far as bacon goes, but I like it a little thinner. So what I like to do is, taking a good sharp knife, I try to slice it in half lengthwise, trying to keep the pieces about as equal as I can. And it's surprising how close I usually come. When I first started making it, I would weigh each piece just to be sure, and I've done it so many times now I don't even bother doing that anymore. But okay, now there's a little bit of excess fat here that I think I might trim out, and otherwise it's ready to go. By the way, this I call it Boston butt bacon, but it goes by a lot of different names. I've heard it called Homesteader's bacon, Pioneer bacon, and buckboard bacon. Buckboard bacon, I think, is probably the most common name for it. Basically, it's any kind of bacon that's not made out of pork belly. Okay, I'm going to trim this fat out and I'll be right back. Okay, all trimmed up. Now the thing to do is to sprinkle this cure on as evenly as you can, and I'll try to get an equal amount on each piece. Good and thick. Pat that in. And then flip them over and do the other side. Again, I could have used maple syrup instead of the maple sugar, but my hands would be a sticky mess by now. So this is just a little easier to deal with. Okay, that's pretty well coated, and I'm going to flip them back over. And I'm going to put them in a 1-gallon plastic bag. I think I can fit them both in one bag, but If not, I'll put them in 2. So let me go get the bag and I'll be right back. Okay. Take one. Yeah, we can fit them both in there. Pack them both in there, and now I'm going to scrape up as much of this spilled stuff as I can and get it on there. Try to get as much of that air out as you possibly can. In fact, I got a little more in there. The reason being, you want to keep the bag as tight against the meat as you can. What's going to happen is the salt and the cure is going to start to draw some liquid out of the meat. In fact, it's starting already, as you can see. And you want to, if you can, keep as much of that liquid in contact with the meat as possible. What I'll actually do is I'll tape up these corners with a little piece of Scotch tape and be sure that all the liquid doesn't end up in that corner. And then I'll place the whole thing in one of these containers to, again, keep it as close as I can. I'll shove it in the corner like that. And then that'll go in the refrigerator for about a week, maybe 8 days. Because I cut it in half, it'll go much quicker. Had I left it whole like that, it might have taken up to 2 weeks to really get cured. And the way you tell that the cure is finished or adequate is the meat starts to get very firm. It gets very firm and hard. And you can feel it actually, and then that's how you know that the cure has done its job and it's ready to go. So let me put that in the refrigerator and I will see you in about a week. Well, it's actually been 8 days. I got busy with something else yesterday, so I didn't get to it, but that doesn't hurt. I think if you're gonna go a couple days over, it's not so bad. The thing is, you don't want to go too short. You want to be sure that the cure gets all the way through. And you can feel the meat has gotten quite firm, and it's also gotten kind of a darker color. And what I'm going to do now is remove it from the bag in the brine, and then rinse it off real good in cold water. You can see how fairly stiff it's become. And I'm going to put it in this bowl here. Now, at this point it's actually bacon, but it's fairly salty right now because of the tender quick and it's got so much salt in it. And I mean, you could eat it if you don't mind that, but what I like to do at this point is to fill this bowl with water, cold water, put it back in the refrigerator and leave it soak for a couple or 3 hours. Maybe change the water once or twice during that time too, and leach some of that salt out of it. Okay, now I will put that into the refrigerator and let it soak for a couple, 3 hours. Well, they were soaking in the water for about little over 3 hours, 3 hours, 10 minutes, something like that. And I changed the water in there once, so they should be pretty well drained. I'm going to dump the water out of here now. And then lay them out here, or I'll dry them off with a paper towel or two. So that soaking, as I said before, may need to get some of the saltiness out of them. Unless, of course, you like salty bacon, but I don't particularly, so that's what I do. And if you want, I mean, you can soak them overnight even if you really want to soak it out of there, but I don't think that's quite necessary. Now I'm going to lay them out on this rack here, just drying rack. That's actually a cooling rack. And then I'm going to put that back in the refrigerator and let it sit overnight. And what that'll do is it'll form like a pellicle on the outer surfaces, which is going to help in the smoking. I'm going to be smoking these tomorrow on my smoker to finish them off. And that's going to help for the smoking, but also at the same time, this little rust period before you either use it or smoke it is allows the cure to really settle in there and do what it's going to do as far as the meat preservation goes. So I'll get it in the refrigerator and I will see you tomorrow morning. Well, they sat overnight and you got a nice little pellicle formed. I know you probably can't see it in the video, but it's kind of shiny and just a little bit tacky. And as you can see, the meat has gotten very, very stiff. So what I'm going to do now, in preparation for smoking it, I'm just going to sprinkle a little freshly ground black pepper on. Now, if you like real peppery bacon, you could have actually included the pepper in with the cure or sprinkled it on when you sprinkled on the cure and topped it up after you washed it off and everything. And that would have given it even more of a peppery flavor, but we don't like it terribly peppery, but a little bit is good. So we're going to coat that up a little bit. Now this is going to sit here for maybe half an hour or so while I get the smoker ready. Okay, ready for the smoker. Got it all set up. I got my thermometer set up, and I will put these on. And insert my meat thermometer right into the nice thick part of the bacon. Right about there should be good. Slide that back. In the smoke box I have about 4 ounces of applewood. I'm going to try applewood this time. Normally I use hickory for this, but this time I got a hold of some nice applewood, so I'm going to try that. Okay, let's close it up. Turn it on. I'm going to be smoking this at about 180, as close as I can get to it anyway, for the first few hours, maybe the first hour, and then I'm going to start to ramp up the temperature a little bit until I get it up to about 200, 225, and then finish it off from there. I'll be looking for an internal temperature of the meat about between 140 and 150. So I'm guessing that's going to take about 3 hours or so. And there it is, finished. That smells just marvelous. It took about 3.5 hours, and I finished with an internal temperature of 143. So it's done just about perfectly. And what'll happen now is I'll leave it on this rack to cool until it gets cool enough to wrap in foil, and then I'll put that in the refrigerator until tomorrow. It slices very much easier when it is cold. And I usually just slice what we're going to eat at the time, and then probably I'll freeze one of these because it'll take us a while to eat through it all. But I tell you what, I can't resist. I just have to try a little piece. So I'm going to slice me off a little taste here. And if you can see that, how nice and pink it is. Oh boy, that is really tasty. I'm almost tempted to have another one, but I'll resist. As it sits overnight also, in the foil, the smoke flavor will intensify throughout the meat. Right now on the outside it's very intense, but as you get down to the center it's less so. But that'll even out and as it sits overnight. Okay, that's all I have to offer, and I hope you got something out of that. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.